Us are back. So we are ready for matters by the public, and we are eagerly awaiting the remarks of our residents. Commissioner Kerner, would you please call our first guest to the microphone?
Yes, we'll try to do this as efficiently as possible, so if we can use both microphones, since we have a lot of cards here. We'll start with Marsha Woodward on the microphone to your right, and Sean, is there Sean Yermez or Yerman? Oh, sorry, Jean. Yes, ma'am, thank you so much.
Afternoon, Ms. Woodward, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Where's the clock? Sorry, it's my first time addressing you, commissioners.
I'm sorry?
Is there a clock? Oh, thank you. Sorry. First time addressing you. Thank you all very much for allowing us to come and speak. My name is Marcy Woodward. I live in Boca Raton, Florida. I am here at the request of several emails I've received from people in my community about election integrity, specifically cameras live streaming the same way that Miami and Broward are now implementing. We're behind them, and when I found that out, it was distressing to me that we're the Tri-County area. We should all be doing similar things. And the fact is, trust has been broken across the board with a lot of institutions, and election integrity is a big one for a lot of people. It's important to me as a citizen to know that all eyes are on what's happening. Cameras don't blink, they don't take breaks. They're always working. Secondly, this is not just about me as a voter. I am putting in, Friday is the day I'm filing to run to sit on the board with all of you. So this is extremely important. Commissioner, first time we've met, thank you. I am running, and I want to know that all of the people who support me, people that I ask to knock doors, people who donate to me, they know that it's very, very important that all of the votes are counted and counted the way the voter intended. And the way to build that back is brick by brick. This is a brick, building back the trust with the community. Building back the trust that we have with the community on just this one issue. It's important. It's a step in the right direction. Miami-Dade and Broward and Duval County are already live streaming a lot of the voter things that are happening. It's important. And this is something I would, if I were sitting amongst you, I would encourage you to vote for, because we have to build back trust with our community. Thank you.
Commissioner Marino, could you turn off your microphone when you're not speaking? Ms. Woodward, thank you very much for your comments. We certainly appreciate them. I would also just let you know the supervisor of elections is an independently elected constitutional officer, and she is totally responsible for the elections and the procedures, of course, following the new laws that the legislature just enacted. And we certainly would direct you to send your remarks to Wendy Link, and I'm sure that she will give you proper courtesy.
And thank you. If I would have a moment for rebuttal, I appreciate you saying that exactly, because as part of my campaign to run to sit on this commission would be to work with all offices in this county, including the school board, including the sheriff's office, supervisor of elections, everyone. We all must work together for the sake of the community. This isn't about the single position that you hold. It's about the people in this room and the citizens of this county. And it takes all of us.
Thank you very much for your
hopefully we all will
comments.
be able to work together across different
Your
districts.
3 minutes are up. Thank you very much.
You did take some of my time, but thank you.
Thank you. Following Ms. Jean, we'll have Catherine Quenneville to the microphone to your right, and then Bill Riley on the microphone to the left.
You are recognized for 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thanks for letting me speak today in opposition of the proposed land use zoning change on the Hyder West property. It's on 441 in Boca Raton. I've just learned that GL Homes is trying to purchase a golf course from Stonebridge Country Club, which runs adjacent to this land. This gives me additional pause and concern. At the last few meetings, I have commented on several important issues. For example, why the county granted zoning changes for building in the Ag Reserve when in 1990 the citizens voted for a referendum that would not allow any building. I'm not a lawyer, just a concerned citizen, but I always thought that the burden was on the builder to prove unnecessary hardship on their land in order to get a zoning change. How can there be unnecessary hardship to owners who sell their properties for millions? In this case, it's my understanding that GL Homes purchased land and now they seek zoning amendments and changes. The county should deny GL Homes does not have the right to have zoning changes just because they paid millions of dollars for the property. Let them redevelop the land, which is zoned residential. They currently have the right to build on the Hyder West parcel of land. With the current zoning, it would be low density. Let them build accordingly. There is no hardship here. I came forth with a solution hoping that we could adopt some land bank laws that allow the county to preserve our precious land. With Zoom meetings, we need less office space. With Amazon and the internet, we need less commercial retail. With a slowing housing market, we certainly need less residential building. Less building means less supply, better for current homeowners. They will be able to sell their homes at a higher price. Let's think of the future, not just rubber stamp approval, please, as the former boards have done in the past. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your remarks.
Okay. Ready?
Catherine?
Yes.
All right. Following Catherine, or Ms. Quinville, we'll have Bill Riley and Sheila Calderon.
Ready, go. Hi, thank you very much for this opportunity. It's Catherine Quenville. I'm a Wellington resident, and I'm here for the reason and the purpose of greater election integrity, but with a solution. And I'm following the role model of Palm Beach County with regard to your mission statement, with maybe not everybody in this room is aware of, but it's to drive a continuous improvement culture of excellence that achieves a measurably high level of public satisfaction. And that's why I'm here, to be with you on that, to strive for that level of integrity and direction. So with your vision being to think strategically and anticipate the future, ensure that decisions we make today will have a lasting value, which I believe my simple solution does. There are plenty of people very concerned with election integrity, and the simple solution I've proposed is that we do the live streaming in specifically the Canvas station and the Novus Runbeck duplication station, because those two areas are where human oversight is involved to determine the voter intent. And as it happens right now, and some of you are already involved with overseeing the canvas of those stations. So with so much concern, a simple solution is merely to give the public the comfort of live streaming, which isn't a tall order. If Miami-Dade and Duval and Broward can do it, I think this is an opportunity for Palm Beach County to strive for the best superior election integrity opportunity, which is to deliver this to its residents and maybe put aside some of the concerns we do have for different reasons about election integrity. And just FYI, I did float this to the DeSantis team and heard back last night from his campaign manager that they're going to share this recommendation with their legal and election integrity team. And she also pointed out that supervisors of election, in our case, Wendy Link, are free to provide additional transparency measures to allow observation of the ballot tabulation process, as I suggest here. So I did write an email to each of you on May 13th and wonder if you, as our county leaders, if each of you don't mind telling me, do you support this solution?
This isn't an opportunity for a conversation.
Okay, I just wondered. But if you'd like to write me back, I'd appreciate it. Actually, Commissioner Sachs did write back, and I very much appreciate that she did so. And I do sincerely thank you for your time and consideration today.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your comments.
Following Mr. Riley, we'll have Sheila Calderon and then Peter Barber.
Hi, my name is Bill Riley from Boca Raton, and thank you for having this forum for us today. I'm coming here today as a concerned voter for Palm Beach County and the election integrity in these machines that we have at the SOE. We've got the same answer here from two previous people, but these run-back machines that we have at the SOE, and some of you may be familiar with them, provide a potential problem with their ability to change some ballots and change the intended candidate that may be on that ballot. But my concern is with transparency. We mentioned before, two other people mentioned before about the cameras and having full transparency with full-time cameras on those machines while they're in the SOE. So I don't know if any of you are familiar or have seen this operate. I think Mr. Kerner is a canvasser, and he's very familiar with how all this works. But as a concerned voter, I'm concerned about the integrity, transparency, and full, free, and fair elections that everything is being. I'm not going to go into the history of what's going on in this country with all this election fraud, but I just want to be concerned for our county to take the lead to show that we're full and transparent, just like they are in other counties. So thank you for your time today, and I appreciate having us up here.
Thank you for taking the time to come up here today.
Thank you.
Following Ms. Calderon, we'll have Mr. Barber and then Ms. Maria Zach.
You have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon,
I'm
Mayor.
sorry.
Then I better hurry up. Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners, thank you again, as always, for the opportunity to speak. I'm going to speak today on two issues which I am very passionate about. The first is my commitment, along with my Sierra Club and the rest of the environmental community, to continue opposing development in the Ag Reserve. That is not in keeping with the 40/60 rules for development and preservation in farming. It is time that we stop permitting the development of land which is in direct opposition to what the citizens of the county voted for in 1999, when they approved the bond to preserve and protect the agricultural reserve. That was one of my first votes. As I drive down Lyons Road today, I am totally dismayed at the construction of developments that has been approved, which is in opposition to the life of the Ag Reserve. When driving south on Lyons Road from Lake Worth, I come to a sign that says, "Welcome to the Ag Reserve," okay? And soon afterwards come to a builder's sign, I won't mention the builder, and a huge piece of land cleared for the development of homes for 50-plus seniors. To add to the site, the sign advertises the homes to be starting at $900,000. This is further an insult to all of us that know we are in serious crisis for affordable and low-income housing. Further, I do not believe the Ag Reserve should not be considered at the Ag Reserve shouldn't be considered the place for that type of development, either unless it backs with a shopping plaza and or public transportation. Summing up this point, I'm absolutely not in favor of the GL Builders swap deal that would allow construction of homes throughout the Ag Reserve property they are proposing, and supposedly would include affordable housing alongside the million-dollar homes they intend to build. I hope that you are prepared to deny this proposal as it comes forward. The second issue I wish to speak about, I don't have enough time, is the lack of current common sense gun control regulations which our government is proposing, including open carry, which will further turn the state into something out of the Wild West years gone by. I believe that our commissioners should stand up to the governor and the legislators proposing these ridiculous gun regulations to let them know in no uncertain terms that it is not acceptable. Using the excuse of denying our Second Amendment rights, which I get in response to my letters to our senators, is absolutely, pardon me, BS. Ensuring proper national background check regulations requiring gun licensing and denying the sale of weapons of war, and that is just what those high-capacity rifles are for, they're for war, is just common sense regulations for any and every gun owner. please won't you take up the cause, and as our commissioners, stand up to our state and federal government to let them know you are standing behind the majority of citizens.
We appreciate your comments, and
that
I've given you a
want
few extra
these
minutes. I
regulations.
also would suggest that you reach out to your state legislators.
I have.
Okay, because they are the ones who will have the opportunity to deal with whatever the governor does propose in the future.
Yeah, I do. I am
Thank
just
you.
hoping that you guys will be supportive. Thank you.
Thank you.
Following Mr. Barber, we'll have Maria Zach and then Hope Mucklow. I apologize.
Hello and thank you. My name is Peter Barber, and I live at 5045 Sesame Street. It's a very happy place, by the way. I like the way I look on camera. I would like to address voter integrity. It's a big issue, in particular machines. And with what's going on in the press today and everywhere that you see, is a concern with ESNS, Dominion, Runbeck, these counting systems. And by the way, I've gone to Wendy Link's facility, written Wendy Link emails. So we're kind of addressing that area, and we're asking for your support, we being me and other concerned citizens, that our vote counts. Okay? We care about you, and you should care about us. As of late, it seems that there's it's you, the government, and we, the people. I don't like that divide. I believe that we should all be in this together. And in order to do that, our vote is very, very important. And every time a machine miscounts or doesn't count or overcounts or does something else to our vote, it deletes our vote. It deletes our power. We are a very, very interested group of people in America, and America is driven by a voting populace. And we need serious people sitting up there, and I appreciate you giving us the time. And we appreciate the fact that you are serious people. But we need to be able to have a reliable system of voting. And I don't know, I'm a fairly young 70-year-old, but I can remember growing up in the Bronx and not having machines. We went in, we voted, and it counted. And the next day, we found out who the mayor was, whether we liked him or not. We found out who the councilman was, whether we liked him or not. Point is, we go on for days and days in places where, and I'm not accusing you of all this. Please understand that it's just the momentum of everything that comes down on you. Is that all you hear about is, oh, we need another 30 days. We found another 13 votes. We found another 13,000 votes. It's mind-boggling, and it's crazy. And I'm just a guy that rode around the city and the subways in New York, came down here for a lovely experience for 25 years, and now I'm entering my third phase of my life. I see my time's running out, but I want to thank you for the opportunity to present my case to you. Be well.
And we appreciate you taking the time to come up here.
Following Maria Zach, we'll have Hope, Miss Hope, and then Candace Rojas.
Please.
Good afternoon. I'm Maria Zach. I chair Nations in Action, an organization that is devoted to ensuring good government and accountability. Many of you may know me from my investigation into the theft of the election in 2000 with the use of the satellites in Italy. Yes, that is me. I actually am a citizen of Palm Beach County and the city of Palm Beach, and I'm pleased to be here today. I have over 30 years in government affairs experience. I had the top lobbying firm in the state of Georgia, and I've had Fortune 5 companies as my clients for decades. I think I've been around the block a little. Additionally, I've run campaigns from presidential all the way down to clerk of courts. I understand election fraud and was brought here in the year 2000 for the recount. I was a citizen of Georgia that came down to help ensure integrity in the elections here in Palm Beach County. So I find it quite ironic I find myself here today to talk about election security. Election security that we all depend upon to have our free and fair system. Unfortunately, today we find ourselves in a quandary. The state of Georgia just held their primary election, and I know you most likely did not hear what just occurred. A county commissioner race, 4 candidates, could have been you, it may become you. The candidate that came in 4th actually received 589 votes. She was 4th. She asked for a recount, a hand count. At that hand count, the hand count added 3,491 votes. She ended up winning with 4,080 votes 2 weeks ago in the state of Georgia. This is not over. It's going to happen again and again and again until you fix it. How can you fix it? Well, Nations in Action actually has a sheet of 100 ways to alter an election. Yes, I can figure out how to come in and steal your election or alter it in some ways. In that, some of it is legislative remedies, some of it is process, some of it is election equipment. The state of Georgia had legislation that did not enable the use, the looking and examining of the code, the software code. Well, that might be where you'd want to start. So if you're going to alter votes, the software is a very fragile process, and even in Wisconsin, they found 30 backdoors in. I testified in Kansas recently, and immediately upon testifying, and I beg everyone to please watch that, every citizen in America, because that is now a government record, and they immediately passed the audit for the state of Kansas, which I'm sure you didn't hear about that either because our media seems to be a little preoccupied with other agendas.
I must ask you to start concluding.
Yes, sir. And I just want to say thank you. I really ask that you consider the proper funding and mechanisms needed to ensure this election integrity happens, or you're next. So thank you.
We thank you so much for your comments, and for those listening to these remarks, I want to remind you that Governor DeSantis had said not too long ago that we have become a national leader by running the most secure elections in the country. So we have given the supervisor of elections every dollar that she has asked for to help her deal with the issues of election integrity, and this county commission stands behind her, and we will be there to help her wherever she needs. But again, as a constitutional officer, she is an independently elected individual responsible to the governor.
Following Hope Mucklow, we'll have Candace Rojas and then Alan Schuster.
Hello, Mayor. Good to see you. The last time I was here, first of all, I want to thank you very much that the plexiglass is gone, the mask requirement is down. So glad that you decided to hear what we had said the last time we were here. But anyhow, I'd like to share a quote from C.S. Lewis. Of all the tyrannies, a tyranny sincerely exercised for the good of its victims may be the most oppressive. It would be better to live under robber barons than under the omnipotent's moral busybodies. The robber baron's cruelty may sometimes sleep, but his cupidity may at some point be satiated. But those who torment us for our own goodwill will torment us without end, for they do it with the approval of their own conscience. I use that quote because as I've been watching public policy, individuals, elected officials, I certainly understand it's hard work to get elected. It takes a lot of money. It's not a very appreciated one, but sometimes I just sense that there's not a lot of respect for the people that are really taking time to come here and speak. And so I just challenge you to don't forget to be humble, and don't forget that you are a representative and that leadership is a high calling. So with that, a lot of people are here. They really care about the election integrity. If you haven't seen 2,000 plus mules, I highly suggest that you take a look at how they cut that, what data they used. Don't just dismiss it as another conspiracy theory. I woke up because I used to work with this man. I shook his hand 2 times in his office before I met you, sir, okay? I know what it is to be canceled early on. I know what it is to not be able to get a job. I know what it is to try to homeschool my kid with very little budget, because I've lost those positions, because I actually did my job, which was stood up for what was right, good patient care, and not just the bottom dollar. I really cared, okay? So just, if you would, please keep that in mind. And I think it's real simple, the election integrity. You know, there's a lot of games that can go on, and then, you know, it's just the wickedness just escalates to higher levels. Do we want to keep playing that game and allowing it to do that, or do we want to start shaking hands, getting along with one another, do what our founding fathers actually had the brilliance to set up in our Constitution? They set up so the checks and balances would be there so that we wouldn't have positions that are very powerful that are not elected, that are actually running the show. Okay? So please consider voter ID, voting in person, and what these people have to say. Thank you so much. And thank you for the privilege to be able to speak to you.
Thank you very much, and we appreciate you taking the time to be here.
Following Candace Rojas, we'll have Alan Schuster and then Robert Guzzardi.
Ms. Rojas, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Commissioners, for having me today. Hello, my name is Candace Rojas. I'm the chairman of the board for a political PAC called Palm Beach Patriots. Our mission is to promote America First politicians and policies. Our values include faith, family, freedom, and fair elections. And a few months ago, a team of our volunteers had the pleasure of spending approximately a month at the Palm Beach Supervisor of Elections Department, the Tabulation Center in Riviera Beach. What a treat. We watched the various phases of processing the ballots, including verifying signatures from the mail-in votes, and then the canvassing board, and also observing the duplicator machines and the employees who worked those machines. Recently, out in the news, we hear about the movie 2,000 Mules, which has been mentioned earlier, and that exposed us as to one way that includes instances of ballot harvesting throughout the nation. And of course, as our Commissioner Weinroth mentioned, our great Governor DeSantis has enforced SB 60 to prevent this problem in Florida of the ballot harvesting, or tried to dismiss it. However, our observations at the SOE, it is evident to us that the Novus run-back duplicator machines that were purchased, we believe, through Zuckerbucks, are questionable, to say the least. And I don't know if you guys know this, but the duplicator machines, it's like an oxymoron. They're 90% error. So they're supposed to duplicate, but they don't. They do it wrong. So it requires a human to press the button back to the way it's supposed to be, which is the most ridiculous and asinine thing I have ever heard of. And then they call it a duplicator, but it doesn't really duplicate. So I have personally observed the employees who were in charge of changing the miscounted votes back to the right way, and the person looked almost hypnotized and sleepy because of the monotony of that task. And we don't blame them. I mean, it's a hard task. So there are many published reports that have shown these duplicator machines also have what's called an Easter egg component, which is a military spec software that has the ability to actually change the votes if a certain candidate gets too many. There's all these allegations out there that we're hearing on social media and other places. So we are asking, at the very least, transparency through 24-hour cameras that are live streamed and placed at the Supervisor of Elections. That would eliminate that complaint. So eventually my goal would be to see that we had one-day voting with exceptions like military and handicapped people, hand ballots, no machines. I'd like to get rid of all the machines, truthfully. ID required, and hand counting the votes. But I know that's not realistic right now, but we're just asking your help. I know many of you are wonderful people, and we need your help. It's not a partisan issue. So I will conclude with the famous quote: "It does not matter who votes, it matters who counts the votes." Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rojas. We appreciate those comments.
Following Mr. Schuster, we'll have Robert Guzzardi and then Bill Gunn.
Hi, my name is Alan Schuster. I live at 2065 Yarmouth D in Boca Raton. I wanted to talk about election integrity for a minute. I think we need to have an election where when all the counting is done, we We know who won, we know who lost, and it should be the end of the story. And I'm hoping that if we have the streaming that everybody's been suggesting, that'll be the best thing. Because if we don't have honest and fair elections, we got nothing. Number two, I wanted to talk. I don't know that much about land planning, but I came here 8 years ago, and Lyons Road was like open with a lot of trees. Now there's a lot of building going on. I don't know if that's the best thing. I'm not up on it, but I've been watching it, and I like to have open spaces. Especially, we went through the whole COVID thing, and if it wasn't for the park, I would have gone nuts. So we need to have open spaces. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments.
Following Mr. Guzzardi, we'll have Bill Gunn and then David Wood.
Commissioners, my name is Bob Guzzardi. I live at 1900 Consulate Place. Mr. Bernard is my commissioner, and I am happy to have found that out as a result of coming here. I would like to talk about election integrity on a slightly different angle. I sent a letter to Mr. Bernard and to the other commissioners, and I listed a number of primaries where there were very, very close elections, including for Congressional District 20, where in the Democratic primary, the winner, Sheila McCormick, won by 5 votes. It was not contested. There is no even an allegation of fraud, and that is not what I am talking about. I have been also involved with with signature verification. I'm aware that Wendy Link is a constitutional officer and elected. We have come here because partially, in my opinion, you have a great deal of moral suasion. Number two, you have a self-interest that these are primaries, whatever party, even at commissioner level and nonpartisan, we need to have exact votes. There's a interesting fact in Palm Beach County. There were 60,927 ballots counted in 2022 in the special election. There were 778,201 ballots counted in the 2020 election. There was not a single investigation of voter fraud. There was not a single prosecution. When you go back in the next, I attached an article from J. Christian Adams, who was with the Department of Justice and election issues, and he talks about Florida specifically, the number of votes, and not a single, not one prosecution. There were 156 referrals, not one prosecution, out of millions of votes. In a previous speaker referenced the Georgia primary, which was I think it was a Democratic primary, I'm not sure. Whatever it was a primary. There was none of the usual partisan incentives to cheat. There were apparently a serious error. In Pennsylvania, where I originally come from, there was just a Republican primary. 1.3 million votes were cast. The winner in the Republican primary won by less than a million. Less than 1,000 votes, out of 1.3 million. There was no allegation of fraud. These are two Republicans running against each other, not the usual partisan hysteria, but it's hard for me to believe that those votes were actually counted. There was a report recently by the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Agency concerning the Dominion voting machines. This is focused on voting machines. They don't say anything was changed. They don't say anything fraud, but they do say there's opportunities for vulnerabilities.
I have to ask you to sum up your comments.
Fine. Thank you very much for your time. And since you're the funders, you do have a great deal of input.
And we appreciate your comments, and I'm just going to allay your fears because the governor signed in April a piece of legislation to create a police force to make sure that voter fraud does not happen in our state.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bernard, you're recognized.
Sir, I have a quick question. Did you take a look at the like the Miami-Dade Senate race and also the Seminole County Senate races?
No, I did not.
Okay, because there's you've had the write-in candidate issue, so you didn't look at those at all?
No, I'm not aware of those, what those issues were or what's involved.
But there, like, just to let you know, the state attorney, like, there's prosecution also, and then also I believe that the state also arrested some folks in regards to the Seminole County last week. So those are election issues that you can actually take a look at also.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you again for your comments.
Following Mr. Bill Gunn, we'll have David Wood and then Jamie Lehman.
Thank you. My name is Bill Gunn, relatively new resident from North Palm Beach, born in Texas. Name is Gunn. I hope that doesn't offend anybody here, but I do want to say and reiterate what I've heard already. And I am looking to you folks and as leaders, and certainly I've heard that from other speakers that we want you to be. We want to support you as not only leaders, but champions of what we are speaking about today. And I'm once again here talking about election integrity and transparency. I think transparency is so important, and I think what I've heard, we've all been reading the same information, getting the same feedback from folks, but I think if we have the live streaming, it's so inexpensive and so foolproof and so easy to implement, we ought to really consider that. And once again, Wendy Link is the constitutional elected official, but once again, if you guys would be champions for us in the cause, there are other things that we could talk about. One thing I wanted to know, I haven't done enough research, but I wondered if there's been a publication, a study done that you've sent to all of us citizens in Palm Beach County that talks about the election rolls. I think that's a very important issue. I don't know if there's something you can point to about how often, what the metrics are, and the ongoing process of making sure the election rolls are very, very 100% accurate. That's doable. It's totally doable. It's not pie in the sky, and it's so important. The other thing, too, is that precincts. I don't know if the precincts in Palm Beach County could be a little bit smaller, perhaps inviting more volunteer poll watchers, getting more people involved in the process, because the election of our officials at all levels of government is paramount in our constitutional republic. And you see a lot of people coming here that are quite eager to talk about this. And there's some skeptics, I suppose. I can see the expressions on some faces here that think this is not so important. I believe it's very important. Early voting, I don't know why we have to do that. Too much mailing voting, that's not necessary. As a youngster, and I used to be a youngster, formerly a teenager, and then when I first voted when I was in the 18-year range, I do remember the excitement of Election Day. I mean, tremendous excitement of national elections, local elections, and having results before I went to bed. I think it's possible. I think that we don't need to rely on the complexity that we've built into today's system. So I appreciate you very much. I want to see you guys be very successful. I want to follow you, watch you, like my IBM instructor told me, follow your audience at all time, watch them like a hawk. And that's what I want to do for you guys, wishing you all the very best for what you do to lead Palm Beach County. And I thank you.
And we thank you for your participation here today. Commissioner McKinley.
Yes, I just wanted to thank you and welcome you from Texas to Florida, and just repeat what the mayor said earlier. There are 67 counties in Florida. In each one of those counties, the supervisor of elections is independently elected. She follows the statutes that the legislature and the governor sign into law and that are implemented by the Secretary of State, who has ultimate control over elections. So while I appreciate these concerns are being brought to us, the best thing you could do is perhaps ask the supervisor of elections to host a meeting for you, and you can address those. Our role is when she has a funding request, she comes to us for approval of that funding request if it's not something that's funded by the legislature. So I appreciate hearing your concerns, but please make sure that you share them with her. We do not control her office. We don't have any say in how she implements elections. That's unfortunately, it's not our purview. But I would recommend that you are new here in the state of Florida from Texas, that Wendy Link is who you want to speak with, and she was appointed to fill a vacancy in that office. She was appointed by Governor DeSantis. He hand-selected her. She has since been reelected to that seat, but she was selected by the governor for that role. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner McKinley, and I would encourage you, if you haven't done so already, to read Senate Bill 524. This was a bill that was signed by the governor in April, and it was to reform elections in our state, notwithstanding the fact that the governor said that these were the most secure elections in the country. And one of the things that it addressed was voter rolls. So if there's some concern on your part that the voter rolls aren't accurate, I would encourage you to read that bill. And I think you'll find that they've strengthened reformed the way that the voter rolls are kept together. Commissioner Kerner, who's our next guest?
We have Mr. Wood will be our next public speaker, followed by Jamie Lehman and then Andrew Carey.
Mr. Wood, you have 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is David Wood. I live in Lake Worth Beach, and I'm here about election integrity. Many people that have gone before me here have come up with lots of facts, lots of details, and there seems to be a consensus that among the people that are here that we should have surveillance cameras on the various stations in the tabulation room. I guess that's what you call it. I don't know. In the tabulation area for the votes that come in, and there's also I know there has to be signature checks on mail-in ballots. I think there should be cameras there, some sort of surveillance there. But all this camera ideas sounds real good, but until we actually go back to paper ballots, there can be no absolute confidence in the fact that our votes are being counted correctly. And I think that you as commissioners, even though you don't have a direct say over this, need to advocate for this sort of thing, to return to true integrity. I mean, these machines are a mystery, what happens in them. Nobody can even tell, nobody can even audit these things. It's just very, very frustrating to me that people don't understand that how easily these things can be manipulated through machines. Also, I would ask you if you have seen this 2000 Mules movie, and if you haven't, I'd like to know why not, because I would be concerned, if I were in your position, to know everything I could possibly know about the election process and what can go wrong with it. Anyway, I'm going to conclude that. That's
Thank you very much. And again, I thank you for those comments, and I'll let you know that under the new law, nobody can put more than 2 ballots into the vote by mail or the containers, except for members of their family. So ballot harvesting, which is, I think, something that you're alluding to with the movie that you saw, is not something that's going to be permitted in our state.
Following Jamie Lehman, we'll have Andrew Carey and then Lorna Wallach.
Hi, I'm Jamie Lehman. I live in West Palm Beach, and
Can you pull them?
Yeah, can you just pull that? Great, thank you.
I'd like to speak about election security in Palm Beach County. I understand that Ron DeSantis has, a police force for election security coming, but that's not the same as prevention. And we understand that Wendy Link's office is independent, but we still need your support. We'll follow up with her, but when it comes to funding, we need your support. So I'd like to share some thoughts from Bev Harris from Black Box Voting. Trusting in hope is not a good method to ensure accurate election results. Elections are the public act through which you assemble your democratic governance, and elections are only public when you and everyone else can fully participate. Full participation includes oversight. Oversight starts with transparency. Transparency is a public ability to see and verify every essential step in elections. And until we can get rid of the machines altogether, we need live streaming. I don't think just at 2 stations where the canvassing board is and where the duplicator machine is, but everywhere. We know that money and power concentrate control. We see that a lot in Palm Beach County. Elections and transparency return a portion of that control back to we the people. All things government are paid for with either our money in the form of taxes or by putting IOUs on our money through debt or through debt obligations on our children. It should be clear that we, including you, have every right to see what we bought with our money. We paid for the ballots, the machines, the counters, the warehouse, and the salaries of any and all persons telling us we might not have the right to look or that we should be satisfied with a glimpse of a monitor while we're positioned away at a far distance. We're not interested in professional insiders arranging for their own selections anymore. The public right to ascertain that their government is telling the truth about election results is the last, best, peaceful resistance against illegitimate governance. So I implore you to support us in the installation of live streaming. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your comments.
Following Andrew Carey, we'll have Lorna Wallach, and then Steve Isaacson. Is Andrew here?
This young lady is waiting.
Is this Miss Wallach?
Yes, I'm Miss Wallach.
Okay, Ms. Wallach, why don't you go first?
Okay, thank you. Okay, this has become a monthly thing for me. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is
Just
Lorna
give the
Wallach.
microphone a pull towards you.
And I do that every month, too.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, my name is Lorna Wallach. I live in the Ag Reserve, and I am submitting a copy of the 2,333 signatures supporting the petition to protect Sunshine Meadows at the Hyder West property at the Ag Reserve. I printed it yesterday, but as of 8 a.m. this morning, there are 2,347, which is 13 more than yesterday. There's strong public support to defeat GL's bid to challenge the long-time 1.5.1 land use policy that was thoughtfully crafted by the previous caring commissioners to protect our precious resources from inappropriate development. I am concerned it means nothing, and I am disheartened to learn that GL Homes has offered Stonebridge Country Club in a meeting with the homeowners, and this is not hearsay, $4 million, 30 outside golf memberships, and a golf cart path to support their efforts to amend the Hyder West Agricultural Reserve property zoning. So, how many more millions is GL prepared to offer others to negatively affect the outcome of the Hyder West parcel and Sunshine Meadows? Does not the 2,333 signatures from constituents and the negative effects to the ecosystem matter to the board versus the power and money of a developer? If GL is allowed to amend the longstanding plan for the Ag Reserve, it will open the door for every developer to win by using the same playbook. Are we not concerned with protecting longtime thriving businesses and families they support? Decisions made by the commissioners should be made with the focus on the benefit to the constituents in Palm Beach County. How do we, the people, compete with the millions of dollars that mean nothing to a wealthy and a powerful developer, but is unfathomable to us? What started out last February as an idea to fix a water problem in our county has turned into a B-rated movie where the where the rich landowner upstream cuts off the water downstream to force the other ranchers to sell their land. Again, I am disheartened. What happened to the promise by Commissioner Sachs in April meeting where she assured us there would be workshops organized where different points of views would be presented? Where is the fairness and transparency Mayor Weinroth promised? Is GL's offer to Stonebridge fair and transparent? And lastly, look at the developer's map. Sunshine Meadows is being squeezed on 3 sides, trashing our trails, putting riders who are mostly children in peril from huge, loud machinery to frighten flight animals that will boat and run, causing injuries to humans and animals.
Thank you very much. We appreciate those comments.
Yes, please look into it. It's not hearsay.
Following Andrew Carey, we'll have Steve Isaacson and then Christine Scott.
Hi, good afternoon. Andrew Carey, Lake Worth Beach, and I took an afternoon off from my job to come spend the day at the City County Commissioner's office. It's good to meet the mayor and all of you. I got to meet our city mayor last week at a neighborhood association meeting, and she was very down to earth, and this is a little more formal, but I'm here to talk about election integrity as well, along with the dozens of other people. It's important to us. You know, we say something online, and Facebook or whatever censors our comments. And so, you know, we can't wait for election day to vote with to say our bit with our vote. And then you have stories like, well, I talked to a lady who went to vote and they told her she'd already voted by mail and she couldn't vote. And so it's just, the elections are important to everybody. So anyhow, I thought I'd take a day off and add my voice to the list of people asking for these cameras at the duplicating station and the canvassing board, or whatever you guys think is most important to give like the illusion of transparency to the public. You know, let's try and see what's happening with the elections. I can't believe Governor DeSantis said, you know, it was the most secure election and then turns around and has these extreme laws. I don't know what to think. You know, the 2016 election was, for the whole time we were talking about Russian collusion and there was a big problem with it, and then the 2020 election was the most secure ever, and I don't know, the jury's still out and more evidence is coming in. I mean, if you've seen the movie 2,000 Mules, I mean, it's one thing to say, well, we've passed a new law in Florida, so none of that'll happen, but the things that happened in Arizona were violations of the law. It's never legal to be harvesting votes like they did. And there's another movie called Rigged that I think everyone should see, every citizen should see. It's interesting that the mainstream media is trying to keep them hidden. Isn't that curious? So that's all I had to say on election integrity. I have one comment in response to the gun control lady. There are 1.5 million incidents per year where a person defends themselves with a firearm. And I would hate to take away the firearms from people, my mom, my sister, who would defend themselves from a violent crime because someone else committed an atrocity. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and you will not be censored up here. We will always allow you to have this forum.
Following Mr. Isaacson, we'll have Christine Scott and then Bill Boniface.
Good afternoon, gentlemen and ladies. Okay. My name is Steve Isaacson, and I happen to live in a GL community, for full disclosure. Okay. Money, power, manipulation. GL's proposed amendment to the comprehensive plan text lays out its plan for the commissioners to approve their Hyder West property amendment by offering to provide a much larger area in the Indian Trails Grove rural tier. GL seeks to win your support for approval in a smaller area in the Ag Reserve tier, an area which has been protected from residential development under long-standing Florida Land Elements Policy 1.5.1. GL has owned the land in the Hyder West property since 2005. They originally purchased that land for $21.1 million, knowing that that land was restricted from residential development under the Florida land use. It would seem that GL bet that they could win the board's approval for modification and at a time when land and single-family home prices and profits were ideal for home development. Is their money, power, and influence and their skilled manipulation working? Will our ecosystem in the AG Reserve and the many Palm Beach constituents who reject this development pay the price of GL's bet? GL recognizes the Florida Land Use Atlas's requirement for compatibility. They state, quote, GL states, the proposed amendment to revise the proposed plan of development and change the conceptual plan does not cause the project to be incompatible with the surrounding uses and adjacent lands. It will not create or foster undesirable effects, unquote. If GL's plan was compatible, how does it explain the potential effect on Sunshine Meadows Equestrian Center facility, which their plan totally surrounds? And was GL's proposed gift of $4 million to Stonebridge Country Club on the southern border of the Hyder West property truly a gift or a classic case of quid pro quo for support of their project? Unfortunately, we are all living in a country where truth and fairness seems to be falling victim to the power of money and political influence. We see it at the national level, and clearly we see it at the state level. Hopefully our commissioners will stand strong and recognize and support our environment and all of their constituents. I thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Following Christine Scott, we'll have Bill Boniface and then Jane Justice.
Ms. Scott, you have 3 minutes.
Thanks. Hi, my name is Christine Scott, and I am running for Congress in District 23, which was previously District 22. Election fraud is an issue. I am not sure why we're talking about 2022 or 2024 when we've got 2020 issues here in Palm Beach County. And if DeSantis is saying that we had a perfect election, he's either lying straight up or he is guided by information that is just wrong. It is inaccurate, and we need to get this together. Everyone who is elected works for the people, period. You don't work for corporations. You don't work for the better of the community. The community exists because people are within it, and those people are who you work for. That's it. It's really that straightforward, and there seems to be a globalist push to take over our country. You don't get to participate in that. If you choose to participate in it, it's called treason in the state of Florida. There's also federal treason, but here in the state of Florida, 876.32. And the punishment for treason is death. We're really serious about not doing it. Election fraud amounts to treason, okay? It is an attempt to overthrow a government. You can do that on a local level. We have local government. It doesn't have to be just the U.S. as a whole. It can be in a city. It can be in a county. It can be in a state, okay? You have power here. You represent the people. The people. Only American people. If you're unaware of that, you need to get on the right page there. You don't represent anyone else ever. We care about other countries. We care about other people, but you only represent us, the U.S. population, here, Palm Beach residents. All right, let's talk about Wendy for a minute. Wendy Satori Link, Palm Beach County Supervisor of Elections, took $6.8 million Zuckerbucks. And she said, on video, Laura Loomer filmed it, that she took that money from Zuckerberg himself. She admitted that, okay? She took it from CTCLE, which was Zuckerberg funded. What this has to do with is her intention. She signed I'm almost out of time, a voter plan, which said that she would orchestrate how the CTCL wanted her to. She relinquished control of the 2020 election to basically a left-wing organization. You need to write a letter to the governor. You need to ask the sheriff to look into this, and you need to inform Wendy about this. You have power, you have control, and we need you and expect you to employ that power, to use it to our benefit. You're all elected.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. We
Thank you for
appreciate
your
your
time.
comments. And like you, we are residents of this community, and we have the same feeling that you do, that we all need to participate in this government and do the best we can. And congratulations on your candidacy, and we will, I'm sure, see you again.
Thank you for your time.
Following Mr. Boniface, we'll have Jane Justice and then Thomas Dodson.
My name is Bill Boniface. I live at 120 Southeast Fifth Ave in Boca Raton. I'd like to thank you for this forum. I'm coming from New Jersey, where I don't think this type of thing happens. I came to Florida thinking that Florida was a really special place, and I find that it is. But I also thought that Florida had really good, secure elections. And in the short time I've been here, it's not even a year yet, I've been to addresses where the people who are on the voter rolls don't live there. I've been to addresses where the people on the voter roll are dead. And it really, really concerns me. And you hear all these things. I don't know what to believe on, all the video stuff or internet things, but I do know what I experienced. I've gone to watch the signatures checked out from the mail-in ballots. And the signatures that were verified, it was crazy to see. They didn't look anything like the standard signature. It's really, really concerning. So, America is the greatest country in the world. I think, a lot of the people, including myself, have not participated in government. I don't want Florida to become like New Jersey, so I do want to participate. And, I'm going to be a poll worker. It's important to me. I've got 3 grandchildren in Boca. I want to see them live in a real America. So all I ask is for you. I appreciate the jobs you're doing. I ask that you care and have the same concern that the people in this audience are expressing. I know that, DeSantis says we got a wonderful thing and it's best in the country or something, must be a low bar. And, I understand it's Wendy Link is who was responsible. So, we need to deal as a people to the people that are in control, but we ask you to join us with concerns about what's going on, that we're losing this country. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and I would let you know that Wendy Link is looking for poll workers. She is soliciting them.
On the 16th, I'm signed up.
Okay, very good. Anybody here who is concerned about election integrity, I would let you know that there are ample opportunities to participate in the election. So please reach out to Wendy Link. I know that she would be very happy to train you and have you participate in the primary and in the general election. Commissioner?
Thank you, Mayor. Following Jane Justice, we will have Thomas Dodson and then Mr. or Mrs. Ford. I can't read the first name.
Okay, good afternoon, and thank you for taking the comments. And I want to thank all the people that showed up to make their comments on this #1 important issue about election integrity. I also like to say that there are a lot of laws on the books. That doesn't get us anywhere, does it? We're here today because we want to make sure that the laws are enforced, and one wonderful thing to do is to put a camera over there. The other counties have the camera. We actually need a lot more than that, but this is a start, and we do need your cooperation. Where does your job end? It doesn't end when the meeting's over. You have a sphere of influence, and so do we, and that's why we're here. We consider ourselves patriots. I want to tell you, here's the bad news. The bad news is that when facts are hidden and stories are created, we have fake news. The White House is still barricaded and not taking calls. Most of our military equipment was left in Afghanistan, and when the citizens left behind there to fend for themselves, okay? God only knows what happened to them. There's no talk about that anymore. It's on to the next thing. And now they're instigating in the White House, instigating to put us in war with China and in Russia. Talk about Russia, 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 Russia hoax, January 6th hoax. The truth has gone underground. We've had nothing but COVID theater. And what did that cause us? Catastrophic economic conditions here, okay? Last year, 107,000 people died from fentanyl overdosing on drugs, and they're pouring across the border. We have a catastrophe going on here. This is why we need election integrity, and we definitely need your help. We have no border, period. No border at all. Okay, we have activist judges letting criminals out of jail. The governor in California is getting ready to shut down 3 prisons, okay? And we had 30 food processing plants burned down in this last year, maybe in the last 6 months, okay? Okay, and we're putting criminals on the street. We have absolute lawlessness, so don't tell me that a law is going to protect us. The Department of Education is the Department of Indoctrination. The government has hijacked the White House, and they're using every institution that we have as a weapon against the American people. And I'm standing here for them today, not for myself. We have mass shootings being kind of suggested, you know? The rhetoric that we hear, the fake news, and they're being suggested, and all we have to do to protect the children at schools is to protect the schools. We don't need to take guns away from law-abiding citizens. If we don't have a Second Amendment right, we're not going to have a country, period. And let me tell you, I don't believe these men, to pump up, let me say, to ramp up taking the schools is to take our Second Amendment rights. That's what's going on. I wish people would wake up and start putting 1 + 1 = 2, okay?
Thank you. I need to ask you to finish up.
Yes, thank you. I've got 23 seconds
you're
here.
22 seconds over.
And finally, you're not cutting me off yet.
You're-
Finally, our election was absolutely stolen.
You're done.
Why are you cutting me off?
You finished up 22 minutes
As
ago.
I said, the truth
All
has
right.
gone underground. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Following Thomas Dodson, we'll have Mr. or Mrs. Ford, and then Bruce Grottenfood.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Tom Dodson. I'm a professor of counselor education. In my career, I've trained over 200 school counselors. Many of them are in Palm Beach County. I believe there's a theme I'm hearing of a number of the speakers, and that is related to the live streaming of the Canvas and the Rumback machines. So if news media is handy, that might be a good focus point for discussion further. So that is my main point, is to reinforce what's already been said. This is something that I care a great deal about. I have been a poll worker and had the pleasure of meeting with Wendy Link and also learning some things that maybe she could still have more information about in order to make the changes that would be helpful. In terms of the reality that there is a perception that could be alleviated related to some concern with the machines that we're discussing today, and that if a very simple process would be live streaming of those machines. That's what I have to say today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your comments.
My apologies to Mr. or Mrs. Ford. It's a non-speaking card. I would like to humbly request all elections and vote tabulations be videotaped, monitored, and enforced. When I have Bruce Grottenfood, then Lynn Redmond. Oh, I apologize. Bruce does not wish to speak. Video surveillance at all vote tabulation centers. Election integrity must be monitored and enforced. Our next speaking card is Lynn Redmond, followed by Jonathan Schiffer.
Welcome, Ms. Redmond. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you for letting me speak today. I will be very brief because it's repetitive, but I'm a concerned voter. And I would like to see live streaming in Palm Beach County, like it's done with the Novus Runbeck duplication machines and canvassing machines. And we could use some voter integrity, and I feel if we follow suit with Dade, Broward, and Duval counties and allow this, it will give the county a sense of transparency. And I will, as you said, Melissa, contact Wendy Link and take this information to her. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Following Jonathan Schiffer, we'll have Mary Ellen Manning and then Drew Martin.
Jonathan Schiffer from Wellington. Commissioners, thank you. I don't want to repeat what everybody said. I'm in favor of the streaming. And I think it's a very good idea. It's a small idea, but it's a very good idea. Could I ask for a clarification when I finish, perhaps? I understand that Wendy Link is in charge of a lot of this stuff, but I got the idea, rightly or wrongly, and this is where I'd like the clarification, that you hold some of the purse strings. So if you did come to the conclusion that there was something wrong with the machines, you might have an indirect or perhaps even a direct effect on what Ms. Link does in terms of your control of budgeting. I'd be interested in what you might have to say about that. My other question, and then I'll conclude, is rhetorical, and that is that my understanding from a reading of history is that we were the first democracy. It is now the case that most of the countries of Europe don't use machines. 63% of the EU doesn't basically allow mail-in ballots. 74% of the countries in Europe insist on photo ID in person. How did we, the first democracy, end up so far behind so many countries which we look up to, or at least accept are functioning, efficient democracies? That is, the countries of Europe. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I believe that the Supervisor of Elections has a list of manufacturers that she must use, that she can't just go out and use any manufacturer, but I may be mistaken, and I really would encourage you to reach out to the Supervisor of Elections to understand the criteria that she needs. Thank you very much.
Following Mary Ellen Manning, we'll have Drew Martin. Then our final speaking card will be Linda Smith, unless I missed anybody, and then there are a couple non-speaking cards.
Hi, I'm Mary Ellen Manning. I live in West Palm Beach, and I want to say thank you to everybody here and to the county commissioners for the opportunity to speak today. You know, you have a really important role in election integrity, because any one of you could sit on the canvassing board at any time. So while I appreciate, and I do love my governor, I appreciate his opinion that we have a really great election system here in Palm Beach County, or in Florida in general. It is an opinion. It's not a fact. And wouldn't you like to be perfect? As somebody who has participated in many recounts in a couple of different states, a couple of the recounts that I've been participated in have been lost by one vote. And that vote has always been a vote by mail ballot that was under challenge. So it's really important to be perfect, both for the candidates that are in the election, but also for the population who loses by one vote in their community. That could happen at any place at any time. So one of the things I want to point out to you is that under 101, Florida Statute 101.68, the canvassing board is supposed to supervise the curing of ballots. So when a vote by mail ballot comes in, I know you know this, some of this is just for the people listening, but when a vote by mail ballot comes in, the signature on the certificate is compared to the signature on file. And if that doesn't match up, then it goes before the canvassing board. And if they decide, you know what, that doesn't match up, we're going to send that back to the voter. And the voter then can cure that ballot And they have to produce some documentation. They have to produce an affidavit. They have to produce some ID. But here in Palm Beach County, in the last 2 elections that I have participated in as an observer at the canvassing tabulation center, the canvassing board made a motion to allow the supervisor of elections employees to do that in the back room, not in front of the canvassing board. So when I asked for the public records request as to who the people were whose ballots were cured, they did not know. When I asked them for the proof of what the ID was that was provided, they said all that proof was destroyed. So I beg you, at the beginning of the next primary, the next election, and all following elections, please, don't file a motion to allow the supervisor of elections employees to do one of the most important functions that you have, which is to make sure that rejected vote-by-mail ballots are cured properly and approved and adjudicated by this body, which under the statute is required. That's a must function, not a maybe function. And I want you to be perfect, because we want to have confidence in perfect elections. And I thank you for the extra time. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Commissioner Kerner, who has participated in our canvassing, would like to make a comment.
Yes, Mayor, and Mary Ellen Manning and I have spent several hours, and if not together, in a room together. And I don't recall that motion, but I did want to say, and I'll have some more substantive comments when the last speaker's done, that I have observed you at almost every canvassing board meeting, and there's a lot of people that talk about being a part of their government, and you have been there and you've watched us do our job. You've objected when it was appropriate. You were always respectful, and you let the process continue as it should with your input, and that's very much appreciated, and I just wanted to thank you for your participation.
Well, thank you, and I just want to reflect back to you that it has been a pleasure dealing with you also, Commissioner. Thank you very much. And if you don't mind, I would like to send you a note with the minutes from that meeting. Perhaps you were not the commissioner who was present when that motion was made.
I would appreciate that.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Thank you again for the extra time.
You're very welcome. Mr. Martin, it's always a pleasure.
I have to go to Drew Martin. I'm here on behalf of the Loxahatchee Group of the Sierra Club, and I have to go to work, and so I was really dismayed that my card fell to the very end of the meeting. But I guess that's the luck of the draw. The Sierra Club doesn't.
We saved the best for last.
Well, that's very kind of you to say that. The Sierra Club does not have a position specifically, although, of course, personally, I would support anything that made people more confident in the election process. I would point out that the governor appointed Wendy Link, Governor DeSantis, that Governor DeSantis is where the buck stops, that there's also a Secretary of State who's a Republican, and the legislature, which is primarily dominated by the Republican Party. So I appreciate, and I really appreciate all the good people that came here today, and I think it is important, and I'm glad that they're interested, and people should be interested. But I really think that the comments really need to be directed to Governor DeSantis and the legislature, who have the real control of the election process. But again, I compliment people for taking the interest. Now I want to talk about the Hyder West group, and we really support their interest, and we really are disappointed. And I think if Jail Homes is going to give, which they're totally free to give, millions of dollars to bordering developments, but I don't think when that development comes up here and puts in a letter of support, I would hope that you would not seriously consider that a valid letter, because they obviously, it is a quid pro quo. It's not illegal, but it's a quid pro quo. I think it's very unfortunate that we're even considering making these changes. I don't think it's good for the environment. I think the voters voted in 1999 for this bond issue because they wanted to preserve the ag reserve. The bond issue wasn't perfectly handled. The price was high. They didn't get the land they should have. Some landowners were left out. I would like to see, if we did another environmental bond, that we might include some of those landowners, because there are some properties that really shouldn't be developed. Yet, maybe they need to be purchased. so that they are not developed. When you look at flooding and the risks of drainage, the area is already overdeveloped, and we need to continue to make and grow our own food. There's droughts in Arizona, there's droughts in California, and we can't count on food coming from other parts of the world. We have to be able to grow our own food. It's a benefit to the county, and it supports us. I just want to say briefly in my last couple of seconds that I hope that you'll take more action on ending the use of single-use plastics. Thank you.
Thank you. And you always keep within your 3 minutes, Mr. Martin, and I appreciate that.
And then our final speaker, Linda Smith.
Linda Smith, Jupiter, Florida. As I know you folks all know, I'm speaking to preserve the Ag Reserve. I know you're all aware that Palm Beach County real estate values have gone up. We will all benefit from this increase in revenues, but we do not need any more expensive homes. We need affordable homes, not what GL Homes is currently proposing. And I certainly do not support the swap. We need to preserve our zoning, both in North County and the Ag Reserve. Developers should not be able to just come in and say we want something changed because we can make more money then. I don't know what else I can say on that point, but I just figure I'd keep repeating things. So continuing on to the excellent Office of Resiliency workshops in April, reducing single-use plastics, I appreciate and applaud the comments such as, we should lead by example and try to do what we can. And I would propose that requiring restaurants just to ask if a patron wants a plastic straw, needs plastic cutlery, needs takeout ketchup packets, etc. This is an action that will actually save the restaurant money. And I know everyone in this room has thrown out these items without even using it once. So it's not even a single-use plastic. It's just a waste of money. I'm trying to add parameters or requirements to future drink vending machines in Palm Beach County facilities and Palm Beach County Airport to ban the single-use plastic bottles that are often in our vending machines. I have spoken with the Solid Waste Authority, and we would all benefit financially if there was a decrease in recycling these single-use plastic bottles and an increase in recycling aluminum cans. The actual quantity of materials recycled is very low, meaning there's no revenue collected at all. Only landfill space that is filled up or burning, which does release toxins into the air, which is not an optimum solution. The other solution is even worse, litter and microplastics released into our environment. Speaking to the Office of Resiliency, many of Palm Beach County departments are actually doing their part to reduce their single-use plastic in their daily work, and I appreciate that, but they don't have any control when they go to their vending machine in their particular department and need to get something to drink. So I would just like to try to get that into future contracts. And on reducing greenhouse gas, which was also discussed at the workshop, I suggest everyone read Pathways to Net Zero Emissions. I do have copies here if you want. And again, lead by example and do what you can. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. And I just wanted to let you know, we are also the board of the Solid Waste Authority, and at one of our previous meetings, we were happy to hear that we're actually making money on our recycling for the first time in a long time. So not that that changes your point as far as single-use plastic, but we do monetize
Make
it.
more if it's aluminum.
Understood. Thank you, Ms. Smith, again. All right, how are we doing here?
That concludes speaking cards, Mr. Mayor. I do have two non-speaking, one by Roger Stevens, who is concerned about election integrity, and as indicated, I don't need to read the whole card, but would like it as part of the record. And the final one is from Marcy Cohn, who's speaking against the development of the Sunshine Meadows Equestrian Facility, GL Homes. It's a bad idea. Traffic will be unbearable, drainage issues, and then it becomes difficult to read the remainder.
We will receive and file the cards from everybody who asked to have their cards read, and we will go forward now. We do have a last comment from Commissioner Kerner, I believe, responding to some of the election integrity discussion today.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, and thank you. I feel compelled to respond and offer my comments and personal perspective, not just because I'm a citizen of the county or a county commissioner, but I am, in fact, the canvassing board representative of the county commission. And just by way of a brief background, the canvassing board is in fact designed to dilute the power of the supervisor of elections so that decisions on questions of fact are made by 3 elected officials and not 1. And that consists of the chief, not the chief judge, a county court judge, a county commissioner, and the supervisor of elections. And the chair of the board is always the judge unless he or she is absent. And then the county commissioner typically takes the chair's position. And that way, the supervisor of election does not have unity of control of decisions being made that she or he may have a personal interest in. And the system works. Now, somebody mentioned that either Governor DeSantis in his comments about the 2020 election was either lying or relying on false information. I don't know the governor to be a liar, and I certainly don't know him to rely on bad information. But if it was a perfect election, then there's no reason why we shouldn't strive to obtain that perfect record in the future. And I've heard from several people today and throughout the community about the issue of cameras at the election facility. For a government official, particularly a member of the canvassing board, to say, yeah, that's not something that I would support, well, that should raise a concern of impropriety and bias. And I can understand why my responding that I don't want that, I don't think it's effective, would be a concern to you. So let me state categorically, I think it's a great idea. In fact, I was able to watch the Broward Canvassing Board. I sat on the canvassing board in that special election, which came down to 4 or 5 votes. And I had the pleasure, I guess, of watching the Broward Canvassing Board as we were going back and forth and counting the votes. And it was also a stark reminder of how important one vote can be. And I hope that every American understands that concept. Elections are won and lost by 1 vote. Having said that, I need to be hyper cautious about speaking with the supervisor about this because it may invoke the Sunshine Law because we sit on the canvassing board together. What I would like to do is I'd like to learn a little bit more about what it would take to facilitate this. I think it's a reasonable request. I'm sure facilities would be involved in the supervisor of elections office. And if we think it's something that would be beneficial to the voters and provide transparency, I support it. But I would like that request to come from the board at large so that it comes in a formal capacity and not through communication that I speak with behind closed doors with the supervisor of elections. So if it's the board's will, or if there's more information that needs to be gathered before we sign our name or the mayor's name to a letter to the supervisor, then so be it. But I will tell you that I would support it, I do support it, and I would happily sign my name to that letter on behalf of the board as well. So thank you. By the way, we love what we do. It's not an easy job, but meaningful jobs rarely are easy. I really appreciated the dialogue today. We've had a dialogue and interaction with community members today and elected officials, and it was impactful and meaningful. So I thank you. For the most part, it was very respectful, and for that, I'm deeply appreciative. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. County Administrator, I think that it's abundantly clear that there are some concerns on the part of our residents as far as election integrity. I'd like to ask, with the permission of my colleagues, if we could ask the Supervisor of Elections to come to one of our future meetings so that we could have an open discussion about the issues that have been raised today. Okay, very good. Okay. That's going to be the end of today's session as far as public matters. Now, it's 3:30. What I'd like to do is take 5 minutes so that everybody can stretch their legs, and then we're going to return to our normal programming here, and that'll be the PACE debate. So we'll see you in about 5 minutes. going to try and pull this back together. My commission is peeling away one at a time. Another place he had to be. Commissioner Sachs obviously has not been here. Commissioner Marino, I am hoping she's back. She's really under the weather, so she may have actually dropped off the meeting, and I'll verify that she's still with us. Even if she is not, we still have a quorum, but can I leave? All right, look, let's look at this where we stand right now. I'm still here. I have a text. She's there. Okay. Staff may have thought that this was a lot closer to a resolution than we appear to be. I think that we're all in agreement that there's more time necessary and probably a necessity for a workshop. And again, having now lost a couple of members here now, I'm wondering whether, it's now 20 to 4. We can continue on for a little while. Everybody's been sitting here waiting to have a conversation because, we had to get through matters by the public. Why don't we say at 4 o'clock, let's try and put this thing to bed for today. And I'm sure at the end of this conversation, we're going to defer on publishing, and we're going to probably go forward. Commissioner Kerner, what do you think?
Certainly, the mayor's reasoning is spot on, as always. There are just 3 other cards as well, if you wanted me to jump into the public.
Yeah, let's do that. Commissioner McKinley, did you want to make a remark first?
Yeah, I had a question. Is there anything that prevents the PACE providers from being able to work in Palm Beach County if we delay movement on this proposed ordinance today?
Mr. Rutter, would you like to opine?
No, there are not. No issues in that regard. Okay. These are changes to the existing ordinance that's in place and effective today.
Okay, thank you.
All right, very good. All right, Mr. Kerner, Commissioner, let's go ahead. It's getting late.
Wear many hats,
sir.
sir.
Yeah, right. Look, as long as I get your name right, you should be happy.
I'm winning right there. So we have Ellen Bogdanoff, who wanted to speak, and Jamie Dinkus.
Senator, short and sweet.
Short and sweet. I just wanted to clarify a couple things, because I know maybe there was some level of confusion. And this, I'm just going to give you a perspective. First of all, we do have contracts with the contractors as a PACE. I represent, by the way, Ellen Bogdanoff, I represent Y-Green. It's called a contractor participation agreement. So we do, and it lays out all of the terms and the conditions, so the contractor understands that he's not going to get paid till the job is well done. And well done is determined by the homeowner. They're the ones who say, I like the job, so go ahead and pay them. And they do it as an advantage because they know they're going to get paid and they're not going to have to fight. But at the end of the day, it's an advantage for the homeowner because it gives them leverage. And that's what it's about. It's just another financing method that gives the homeowner leverage, because if their job is not well done, they've got somebody who's holding back the money. I don't know about all of you, but when I used to contract to do whatever it was, a fence or a pool or whatever, you would hold back 10% because you needed that leverage if they didn't smooth over the concrete or, there was a little crack that you wanted fixed. So that's, to me, what it's about. And I know Commissioner Kerner had some additional questions, but that's how I see it. And yes, you can do a mechanics lien. It's like anything else. If you don't pay, I don't care what kind of financing you have, somebody's going to lien something. And PACE is no different. It is just one additional alternative with a little bit of a twist. I believe that in looking at this and speaking with my client, there are a lot of provisions of what the recommendations are that actually don't even address any of the issues. I want to go back and just restate quickly that of the 15,000 projects, we have a 2% complaint rate. I don't believe the gross changes in this ordinance address a problem. Everybody would love to have a 2% complaint rate. That is like phenomenal. I don't care what industry it is. I would suggest, and I think I've stated to some of this to you in our private meetings, is that you have a consumer protection division. what we found, and one of the things that the county administrator had shown me is a flyer where people are advertising, because that's the business model, where it's really the contractors who are a lot of times bringing the business to the PACE provider. So make them put in the ordinance that if a contractor is going to publish, that they have to approve all material with the PACE provider. They have to sign off. They have to put a disclaimer. This was approved by Y-Green, and to make sure that it specifically says a couple of things. This is not a government program. Any questions, please contact and list the PACE provider. And that has to be on every advertisement that any contractor would produce. And if they don't do it, and these flyers are in windshields and people can bring them to someone, they get fined and put a fine in the ordinance. To me, if you would take that position, you would eliminate 72% of the complaints, or at least try to attempt to address 72% of the complaints, because it would keep them in line. So, was that sure enough?
There, Commissioner Kernan has a question or comment.
Thanks. With regards to holding back 10%, I try to hold back 90% before, after all the stories that I've heard, not through PACE, but just in life as with contractors. The agreements that I'm now aware of that exist between, and not that I think anyone was trying to hide anything, but I didn't know there were actual written agreements between the PACE provider and the contractor. Are those proprietary, or is the board allowed to see them?
I'm sure we could get you a copy of a contract.
All right.
I don't think it would probably be a blank one. It wouldn't be on with specific, and I don't know that they necessarily negotiate the terms. It just makes it, they're vetted as a contractor, and as part of that process, if they call Y-Green directly, they're on the list of preferred. It's kind of like, the repair shops for State Farm or whatever. We're going to refer you to this particular contractor if you need a roof or you need whatever.
All right, and then, with regards to the advertisements, and I think that's where a lot of my colleagues' fears are, because I've seen them personally, and a lot of them were targeting people that don't speak English as a primary language or as a first language. It was actually given to me because someone was so concerned. In all fairness, it was in Miami-Dade County, not here. But this is a government program, you do not need to pay, the whole thing. And that's what we're really concerned about. But my concern beyond that is that we're now getting into the regulation of speech, because you're asking the government to participate in this. And I don't want the board to have to mandate a contractor's content or be the arbiter of that, or delegate that authority to, and as you guys call yourself part of the government. I've seen in all the literature that you've given me, you guys are a government unit. You're not elected, and I wouldn't put that too front and center in trying to argue that you're a government, so all the, everything that you do is good. But yes, I get it. There's a special district that's handling this, but I don't want to be in the business of regulating content and speech. And so Verdina actually had an idea where you guys put that requirement in your contracts with them, but don't make it come from the board. If that was, unless the county attorney thinks that by us mandating it, we're not regulating someone's First Amendment speech, or by regulating it, or requiring it, rather.
I think that we are allowed to put public safety requirements in our ordinance. I'm not sure that I'm following exactly what you're...
Well, I think we could say, we could require businesses to post notices. We've done that, Commissioner McKinley and I.
Right.
But we're mandating that speech be spoken.
Right.
But here they're asking for approval of the speech that the contractor, through the advertisement, they're looking for a sign-off on that content. And that, I think, may invoke some content restrictions.
I think that the proposal is that the ordinance would have some specific requirements that contractors or that the financing company has to require of contractors, or vice versa. And I don't think that's a problem.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think that's a problem.
As long as they're the arbiter of the content, not us. Or you think we would be in the business?
Well, I think that we're going to tell them what they have to disclose. For instance, they have to have a financing statement, I believe. We require that. The same thing as the government requires when you're getting a loan, that there's a standard form for a retail installment contract type thing.
Okay.
So I think that that's fine.
And I appreciate the case law that gives more of government right to regulate speech in the commercial context.
Right.
But at the same time, I, as a board member, don't want to be involved just from a logistics standpoint in having to review the content of these things. So
Totally understand that, and on the other hand, I think some required language is appropriate.
Okay, thank you.
Administrator Baker?
Just wanted to add that maybe there's some higher level of language we could include in the ordinance. However, the actual language of what ought to be in their advertisement, I again think that ought to be as a part of the contract with the financing company, because they're out there beating the bushes because they've got a means to finance. And so I think you would have better control over who you contract with and what they can do. Because if you leave it on us, then that $25 that we're charging per application is not going to pay for the staff that's going to be needed to monitor and follow up and enforce what these individuals are doing. I think it helps both of us if that's part of the contract with the finance company and the contractor.
Correct. Thank you. But I guess I want to clarify. All I'm saying is that the ordinance should direct the agreement between that the contractor and to publish has to get approval from Y-Green. And Y-Green would be the one that determines what the language would be. The only thing I think you would put in the ordinance would be that you have to specifically state that it's not a government program and provide the telephone number of the PACE provider. That way you would reduce the phone calls significantly coming in so that people understood, oh, I'm not calling my, you can't say it's a government program. It's not. It's only authorized by government, but it's not a government program. So that's really all I was saying. I think that would solve a lot of the problem. I don't think the ordinance is ready for prime time. I think there are a lot of concerns, and I think that when you look at the stats, I think the issues are on the contractor side, and I think we can address those very simply through the consumer services.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Weiss?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say, I think that, the concerns that I've seen and I have received via mail, I've received advertisement clearly for this program, that there are things that I think it's incumbent upon us to say, no, that's not okay. You cannot put that in your advertisement. You cannot use our logo. You cannot use our name. You can't use this and mislead people on this, and I think that's enforceable with fines, and by way of those fines, that would in fact be provide the funding to pay people if we have to go after them. That's where the funding can come from, because I want them substantial, because yeah, and if they're signing off on it, and and then somebody goes behind their back and looking at the flyer that you shared with me, Administrator, somebody just put that together on their computer and printed up a bunch of sheets and went and dropped them off, and that to me is the other. And we've talked about the targeting of a neighborhood and saying that that is not okay, and therefore if we find that out, again, a violation of our ordinance. And I think it's if you really want to put consumer protections on the PACE program, you have to start with the marketing, because on the other hand, and I'll say, I probably should save this to the end, but I mean, we need the data too. Show me the facts. Show me the complaints. I want to see them. I want to know what we're trying to solve. I mean, some things preemptively understand, and consumer protections are a great thing because it is complex, and these are potentially large amounts of money for folks, and that we want to make sure they know what exactly that they're doing. It's because it is a bit different than going in and putting it on your credit card. But at the end of the day, I want to see the data. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Commissioner?
Thank you, Mayor. Is Florida PACE Funding Agency an umbrella organization? It's like a Y-Green? No, they're. Can you clarify for me what Florida PACE Funding Agency is?
Please
If I may.
identify yourself for the record.
Yes, my name is Jamie Dinkins. I'm an attorney for the Florida PACE Funding Agency, which is an independent special district organized by a charter between the city of Kissimmee and Flagler County and operating under Section 163.08 of the Florida statutes. So the Florida PACE Funding Agency appoints administrators. Y-Green is not one of them, but they are entities like that. You heard from Chris Peterson earlier. If we'd had time, you would have heard from James Vergara, who represents Fortify. Those are third-party administrators who operate under the umbrella of the Florida PACE Funding Agency. There are 4 of those, including FPFA, in the state.
What's the one that's in Palm Beach County?
All 4 of them operate in Palm Beach County.
And then,
If you look.
oh, there they are. So, for example, Florida Green Finance Authority is a funding agency.
So yes, Florida Green Finance Authority is also a separate legal entity
Right.
organized under Chapter 163.
So when they're saying, we are a public entity asking another public entity, us, to carry out the mission of the Florida legislature, I think that's a reference to the PACE legislation.
Statute and legislative findings, yes, sir.
Florida PACE Funding Agency is a special purpose local government. But that's distinct from the providers that are within that district.
So all of those providers report up to one of the local government entities that provide the PACE funding platforms. So obviously a private entity does not have the authority to impose a special assessment on property. That requires a government entity, that is, whether it's Florida Resilience and Energy District, Florida PACE Funding Agency, et cetera.
Are there, and so you're representative of Florida Funding Agency?
Florida PACE Funding Agency,
Okay.
yes, sir.
And are your interests or what you're lobbying this commission for any different or distinct from what the providers are, or are you guys really in alignment on what you'd like to see?
We have a little bit of a different perspective, particularly from the Florida PACE Funding Agency, because we do encompass several of the third-party administrators. Some of them provide commercial, some of them provide residential, some of them both. I think Ms. Dede spoke earlier on behalf of some of the commercial perspectives, and there's certainly a lot in the proposed ordinance that would be very helpful, bifurcating, kind of segregating out that large-scale commercial projects that are over $250,000 versus smaller scale ones that really should operate more like, this is a mom-and-pop business, a small restaurant, something like that. So there's a lot in there that's very good, but I think that we weren't given the opportunity to present something a little bit more full to you. So we tried to say, hey, would you cover this part? Would you cover that part? And address you in a way that was maybe more disjointed than we had hoped it would be given the timing.
Are the PACE, are the special, I'm just going to call them special districts.
That's perfect, that's
Are
accurate.
the 4 special districts empowered to impose through ordinance or resolution their own requirements?
Yes, and in fact we do. So each of the governing boards of those, for instance, the Florida PACE Funding Agency has members. The city manager of the city of Kissimmee is one of the members. A member of the former member of the Board of County Commissioners of Flagler County, former member of the Board of County Commissioners in Osceola County. These are the types of people that are in charge, and they provide the oversight. They approve or disapprove of any of the third-party administrators who are interested in providing services, and they will set things that go beyond the statute, if necessary, to do some of the consumer protection work, to protect some of the things that, like we've been talking about, logos, et cetera.
And then last question, how are the officers of this government selected or elected?
So obviously I can speak only for the Florida PACE Funding Agency. They are appointed by the governing bodies of the city of Kissimmee and Flagler County, in our instance, jointly.
And what about in Palm Beach County?
So those members of the board oversee the PACE program for Florida PACE Funding Agency throughout the state.
All right, so there may be local officials on these boards. Local, I mean here in this county, but it's certainly not a requirement.
Correct, yes.
Okay. And so there's a distinction then about what's a public record or what's a government action if it occurs by one of those 4 people or entities versus the finance providers.
Correct, and public records law is, as you know, in Florida, quite broad and would cover anybody who's performing a government function. So as long as those third-party administrators are doing things that are in the spirit of or in the course of executing the legislature's intent under 163.08, the PACE statute, then that would be public business and therefore subject to public records requests. And we handle those on a very regular basis.
As a general recommendation, I'm not trying to do anyone's job here, but I think it would be great for this board if these special districts proactively enacted some of their own consumer protections before coming to the general government to do it. That way, some of the work is kind of done already.
Yeah, and respectfully, Commissioner, it's not us asking for you to do these things. That's something that staff has brought up and asked to take action on, and I agree on behalf of the agency with a lot of the comments that the Commission has already made that we're not quite there yet. We need to do some more workshopping. But we have adopted the PACE Nation standards, which are above and beyond what most counties and cities in the state have asked us to do. We do, the recorded phone calls, which aren't required in most cases. We do a very robust disclosure statement. I was just looking at this on break earlier. A lot of the contractor requirements, Florida PACE Funding Agency has a contractor handbook, and that's what encompasses that written agreement that you were asking about, saying, hey, if you do these things, you're going to get kicked out or there will be consequences, what you are allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do.
All right, and I assure you that this is not a staff-driven issue. There's sufficient interest on this board and concern on this board.
Absolutely.
And that's what's brought this issue to the public sphere.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. We
Thank you.
appreciate your input.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. If I may have my 3 minutes to address the remaining
You
issues.
had a bunch of time. I don't know.
And
Really.
I did offer to make myself available for questions. I have been working with PACE since before I became an attorney while I was in law school. The firm that I was a clerk at was involved in drafting the legislation for PACE in Florida. So this has been something that's literally been my entire career. So I'm happy to answer any
So we
questions.
can blame you.
You absolutely may blame me. There was a period I worked at the First District Court of Appeal where I wasn't involved, but
All right, you have 3 minutes for your final summation.
thank you so much. I do want to cover what Mr. Vergara was planning to speak about on fees briefly. Specifically, the fees that have been proposed are something that would fund the Office of Resilience to do something that is well outside of the scope of what the Office of Resilience is designed to do. I've worked with resilience offices across the country in a number of matters, and the focus tends to be on doing things to harden against the effects of climate change, doing things to maybe delay or even offset some of those negative effects that we would see if sea levels were to rise, if severe weather events were to get more frequent. And we have organizations within our state government, within our local governments that do consumer protection. And we think that the right group to be looking at the consumer protection provisions here is not the Office of Resilience. It's outside of their area of expertise. And I understand why they'd feel like, okay, this sounds like it's an environmental program. It needs to fall under our umbrella. But really, we're looking at things that should be covered by the Inspector General, by the Department of Business and Professional Regulations in the event that a contractor is committing fraud or advertising something that isn't true. The other thing with fees is that currently there's no jurisdiction in the state or in the country that imposes fees on the local governments imposing these assessments on property owners. They will get passed along to those property owners, and that causes a problem in the treatment of these assessments as special assessments. So this has been approved by the Florida Supreme Court. It's been approved by a number of circuit courts in Florida. And the basis of a special assessment is that it provides, and each element of it provides a specific benefit to the property being assessed. And if we are saying that some of that money, even just $25, ends up not going toward the improvement or the processing of that improvement, but instead to general consumer protection that's being done by the county, then that is protecting a person, not a property. And so that portion of the assessment would be suspect under Florida law and subject to challenge. And so we're very leery of that. And that's something that, I've argued at the Supreme Court about. And
Excuse me. Your time isn't up, but there are administrative costs. Obviously, each one of these PACE providers has administrative costs, which they are pushing into the fees that they're going to charge to the consumer. why should we not be able to recoup the administrative costs that the county is now going to have to bear in ensuring that these contracts are being processed over and above what the tax collector is already collecting in her 2% that she's getting through this? I mean, I don't understand your thought that that would somehow run contrary to the intent of the legislation.
It's not so much that it runs contrary to the intent of the legislation. It's more that special assessment law in Florida is very finicky, and if there's anything that doesn't specifically benefit property, then it runs the risk that that portion or the entire assessment would be considered a tax, and there's a lot of case law surrounding that.
I'm looking at my county attorney, and obviously, you know, I know you haven't researched this, but do you see the same
No,
issues?
he is correct that it would not be a special assessment. But he is assuming that the fee has to be paid by the property owner. I'm not sure why that assumption has taken place.
So, in essence, then, the PACE provider could be absorbing that cost, which is de minimis compared to the total value of this relationship of, you know.
In some instances, yes, Mr. Mayor. There are commercial projects that are in the millions of dollars. There are also residential projects below $5,000. And, you know, $25 at a time adds up pretty quickly, especially when at some point someone has to absorb that cost. The Florida PACE Funding Agency, I know, has attempted to make itself very lean in terms of how it spends money, specifically because we want to provide the maximum benefit possible so that we can all achieve that mission of reducing climate change. I know that you'd wanted to end at 4 o'clock, and I realize we're several minutes.
So, you're saying that there is no administrative number that's... Okay, I'll get to you in a second, Commissioner. You're saying that there's nothing rolled into the closing costs of these finance agreements that the consumer eventually signs with the PACE provider that is administrative?
There are some things, such as the recording fees, et cetera, that are all part of specifically assessing that property that aren't part of providing generalized consumer protections. And I think the county attorney is absolutely right that the fee would render the assessment invalid, at least for that portion of it, only if it was paid by the consumer through the assessment. If the county wanted to bill a different way, or if the administrators were interested in absorbing that cost, that would be a different story.
All right. Commissioner Marino, good to see you back online, and we're happy to hear from you.
Well, I've been here the whole time. I just don't feel well. But I did want to comment about the fee, and I realize $25 might seem like a lot to somebody, and not a lot to someone else. But I'm going to talk about District 1 for a second, and then I'll tie it all together. As District 1, when somebody wants to call the county and complain about something, it usually goes to my office because I'm the first number. So if the county and the county's logo and everything else is being used to support this program, then the county is getting called for more information. And when I asked Patrick yesterday in my agenda review why was this $25 fee being charged, the county goes above and beyond what it needs to be doing for this program. And there is staff time that's involved, and it has nothing to do with the collection of the dollars themselves. It actually has to do with answering questions and the implementation of the program. So again, as I said, District 1 fields an awful lot of questions that have nothing to do with even Board of County Commissioners information. I mean, we get calls because somebody wants to find something out about the tax collector, or somebody wants some information about the supervisor of elections. But my first number, District 1, is the first number that everybody calls. So when I see the $25 fee, and again, why were we collecting this? We are spending staff time on this program above and beyond just the collection of the dollars through Ann Gannett's office. So if it's $25 that the companies don't want to pass on to the consumer, then the companies are making enough money. If you have the ability to charge up to 18% interest in the future, if the interest rates aren't capped somehow, then I think a $25 processing fee per person, and there are, I think we have 1,800 people right now in the county that are using this program. And my numbers may be a little wrong, but you can all correct me if I'm wrong, but that would be my position on the $25 fee. All right, I'm done. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner. You have 37 minutes to rebut.
37 minutes, I appreciate it, Mr. Mayor. Seconds. Just very briefly, what every other county in the state does is send those calls to the one of the local governments or even one of the third-party administrators. That's what our interlocal agreement with the county suggests is the appropriate method to deal with that, and that's why no other county in the state charges those fees. I do want to take my remaining 20 seconds to attempt to answer a question that my colleague, Mr. Peterson, kind of deferred to me earlier about the Fair Housing Act. And specifically, there are two provisions in the proposed ordinance. One is an ability to pay standard that focuses on the percentage of gross income that a property owner can devote to a PACE assessment. The Fort Lauderdale standard, which I know was cited earlier, is 10%, I believe. And I think that the proposal has 4%. That part is not problematic under the Fair Housing Act. Fair Housing Act would consider it discriminatory when you have a situation where you have a completely different set of requirements for people making below 120% of the area median income and people making above 120% of the area median income, just because we know statistically that that has a disparate impact on certain populations.
Commissioner McKinley?
Yeah, I might sound repetitive here, but again, remind me how many counties in the state of Florida are charging an additional fee of $25 or any other dollar amount?
There are no counties in the state of Florida that currently charge a fee, Commissioner.
Okay, so for the counties that are using this program, how are they handling complaint calls?
For the most part, if it's something that's easy to answer, they'll just go ahead and answer it. But what we've asked them to do and what most counties do will send the person with the question to, whether it's the Florida PACE Funding Agency or Florida Resilience and Energy District, one of the 4 local governments that's operative there.
Okay, and under the program, the state allows a tax collector to charge up to a certain percentage for administrative fees. What is that percentage?
Correct. So the state law has a specific set of things that they can charge for actual cost up to not exceeding 2%.
And what are those items that they are allowed to fund out of that up to 2% fee?
Things like postage, cost of printing and mailing, programming if some programming is required, that type of thing. Mostly administrative overhead type costs.
And how many counties in the state of Florida are charging that full 2% administrative fee?
I don't know the exact number. It is probably close to 2/3 or 3/4 of them. Most of them do charge the full 2%.
And where does Palm Beach County fall in that?
Palm Beach County charges the full 2%.
Okay. The fee is a non-starter for me. Nobody else is doing it. I think it would be a horrible precedent for Palm Beach County to set that stage as being the only county in the state of Florida to assess an additional fee. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner. All right, that's all the cards we have. It's my intention to not look for a motion to move this forward. I think we're just going to let this item percolate, and with the direction to our county administrator to take the comments that have been brought forward today, and let's consider having another workshop and try and iron this thing out a little bit more before we try and take it for a preliminary reading. Is that in agreement?
Can we at least clear off the mutually agreed upon items so not to clutter the next presentation that comes before us?
I'm happy to unclutter if you have some issues that you would like to try and put on the table. I mean, to me, I see that we can certainly differentiate between a consumer and a commercial consumer. and you know what I'm saying, obviously. So, I mean, the protections that we're putting in place for a resident who is getting a new roof or is getting a new HVAC system is certainly different than a person or a company that has legal counsel and probably the expertise to negotiate these agreements. Now, I did hear something that makes it more difficult to identify where that line is because you have small businesses. So you could have a mom and pop who are looking for a PACE loan. They're not quite as sophisticated as a larger company. So I'm not sure how to differentiate, but I do see a difference between a commercial, PACE person or I'm having trouble finding my words, but there is a difference between and maybe you can.
Residential and non-residential.
What she said.
Ryan Maher, Assistant County Attorney.
Hit your mic.
Ryan Maher, Assistant County Attorney, and we make that differentiation in the ordinance. Commercial loans over $250,000 are treated different than commercial loans under $250,000.
And I see no problem with that. Commissioner McKinley, before I start calling, County Administrator, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Just a friendly suggestion to allow us to go back, meet with the teams again. We know what we've agreed upon. We'll confirm everything we've agreed upon and won't necessarily have to, discuss that in the next workshop. Focus on the things that were of issue today, but somehow we've come to some kind of agreement, and then any other outstanding issues. We won't focus so much on what we've already agreed to, because what's outstanding may also now impact something that we've already agreed to. So just give us that flexibility to sit down and work with them on this
All right.
issue.
Our county attorney would like to say something.
Mr. Mayor, just to remind you, in order to close out this item today, we should go ahead and do a motion to postpone if that's your intent.
Do you want to have a formal postponement to a date certain? Or
We don't
just-
need to have a date certain on this one.
Okay. Let's continue with the conversation. Vice Mayor?
Thank you. I think, and I think in trying to bifurcate the CPACE, and the number of issues I think that staff was looking for direction on, I don't have a problem with, if it's over $250,000 as commercial, that there is no 3-day rescission for those folks. I don't have a problem with, on the commercial PACE side, over $250,000 to have a variable interest rate. And was there one other point, looking to staff now, was there another point on the commercial that you all needed clarification on?
Good for now,
Because they're part of they're typically part of a stacked loan, stacked financing for some of these projects.
Yeah, we can, right now, the requirements are treated the same between 250,000 above and beyond, but the disclosures are different, so we can go ahead and bifurcate that so that only the 3-day right to cancel and the variable, and the 3-day right to cancel is waived for over 250,000, and the variable interest rate is for the 250,000 and above. We
Okay.
can make that change.
Okay, and then I go ahead and make a motion to postpone this item.
Commissioner McKinley, you want a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, all in
Yes.
favor, all opposed? Show that motion to postpone. Oh, come on.
I've had further discussion on that since before you called on Virginia. I thought you called on me and I didn't get a chance to speak. We have postponed this, I guess, so my comments are kind of moot. I feel like we should just approve this ordinance based on the items that we've agreed on, and the rest of this is overreach. We are not a lending institution. We don't set variable interest rates. We don't do that. We don't handle a private financial institution's lending practices. And we certainly should not become the first county in the state to assess additional fees beyond what state statute allows us. This is precisely why we end up in this situation where the legislature comes in and preempts us on everything that we've tried to do, rather than just passing some reasonable fixes to the existing ordinance that we already had. So I'm a little frustrated. I know this is going to come back to us once again. I don't know how many years we've been still going back and forth on this item. But in my opinion, these issues that are still outstanding are way more than we ever asked for in the last workshop, and they are so beyond our reach, we shouldn't even be having this conversation. Those are my final comments. Thank you.
Was I misinterpreting that you were going to give a second to that motion to postpone?
You gave it.
I have a second by Commissioner Kerner. Okay, all right, we're gonna postpone. I think we've talked about this enough for today, so we're gonna show this as being postponed 5-0. All right, thank you, everybody. Obviously, this is going to be back again, hopefully before Commissioner McKinley leaves us.
She'd be glad.
All right, let's finish up our meeting so we can all go home.
All right, we got more stuff.
We got a few odds and ends here. We got Commissioner District appointments. Commissioner Kerner, what do you got?
None.
Good. Commissioner McKinley? None. Vice Mayor?
I would like to appoint Gary Eliopoulos to the Fair Housing Authority.
I have a second by Commissioner Kerner. All in favor, all opposed. I'm going to show that as approved, 5-0. Anything else?
That's it. Thank you.
All right, and I had none. Administrator, I know you have a very long report you want to give us.
I will be very, very brief, and then you can approve it. The parking spaces available for rent that the board directed us to go back and look, we're currently in review and plan on presenting that agenda item in July.
Okay.
You also directed us to research with the county attorney's office rental increases and what steps we can take. We are in the process of doing that as well, and we'll bring that back in July. The housing homeless bond issue, we will be bringing housing and homeless bond along with environmental potential bonds, I should say, back to the board on June 21st. So we'll be bringing those items to you.
All right, and just for clarification, June 21st is a workshop, but that will be a regular agenda item.
It will be a regular agenda item that we'll be looking for directions from the board.
Okay. And what is the date that the supervisor of elections needs to have that done?
I'm gonna put my glasses on so
Todd.
I can see Todd's face. I think it's August 8th, early August. We have to have it.
All right, so, so June 21st certainly would not be an issue with respect to that.
No, sir. And we've looked at other meetings in case you send us back and we need to come back.
We never send you back.
We've got a zoning meeting in June that we could also hit, and then a meeting in July.
All right, very good. Thank you. Motion to approve 7A1. I have a second by the Vice Mayor. The comments are approved and filed, and we've received them, and we're moving on to County Attorney.
Mayor, may I be recognized?
I'm sorry?
May I be recognized? I didn't get the maker for 7A1.
Oh, that's just to receive and file the administrator's comments.
That'll be Kerner.
Yeah, that was Commissioner Kerner made the motion, the Vice Mayor seconded. You're very welcome. All right, County Attorney.
Mr. Mayor, with your permission and the board's permission, I wanted to introduce our summer interns. I think a few of them are still here.
They're still here.
Amazing. We have James McIntyre, Alexandra Watson, and Diana Itala, who will be joining us this summer. Would
Where's
you guys stand up,
Alexander?
please?
Where's Alexander?
Alex.
Oh, okay.
Who is related to someone we all know very well, John Van Arnhem.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And James is related to my office manager, who's been here forever, Janice.
Nepotism.
And it's great.
Very good. Congratulations and welcome. And all the meetings don't last this long.
He's not in law school.
All right. Yeah, really. Anything else? Okay. Commissioner comments. All right, Commissioner Marino, I'm going to give you first up. Are you still up?
You've ignored all my other little texts, so yeah, I have no comments other than to say, everybody stay healthy.
This is a thankless job, let me tell you. I've been abused here by... All right. We're going to move on to...
That's all right.
Commissioner Kerner, what do you have to say?
The only comment is, I was going to ask who these fine young professionals are, but I'm delighted that you were here for the whole meeting, but I hope that you make your way around with the county attorney's permission to the 12th floor and get to spend some time with the commissioners and their staff and have a good conversation with us. And I know we would really appreciate that.
Very good. Okay, Commissioner McKinley, I see you have a request.
Yeah, you know, when I was mayor, we had no hurricanes, no pandemics, and the elections went smoothly.
Well, okay.
Just had to tease you on that one. Yes, I have one motion I'd like to make and one set of comments, if you don't mind. I'll do the motion first. It's a request for an off-site proclamation declaring June 17th, 2022 as Vince Bonvento Day in Palm Beach County.
Seconded by the Vice Mayor. All in favor, all opposed, 5-0. Next.
Thank you, and it's been a long day. I received an email very late yesterday, in regards to mental health and substance use beds in Palm Beach County. This email states that we all know we've lost beds at the Jerome Golden Center when it closed. In April of this year, St. Mary's Medical Center stopped providing the mental health services, and so I'm not sure what's going on with the mental health beds there. And then after a meeting yesterday, it's come to my attention that the addiction stabilization unit that we opened up is still not operating the way that we had set it up to operate. They basically have a couple of gurneys behind a curtain in the emergency room rather than the separate unit that they had once housed for us. I know that there is a conversation about the healthcare district providing mental health services, perhaps looking into doing a standalone emergency room to provide those addiction services. And I know one of our former employees is working on that. We need to speed up that conversation, and if we could get an update from our community leaders in this field or in these fields about the status of mental health beds in Palm Beach County, both adult and pediatric, as well as addiction stabilization unit status, I would like that to come back to us. Thank you, Mayor.
Without objection. Okay, Vice Mayor?
Just got to turn that on. Thank you very much, Mayor. Just a couple things. I want to welcome Kate Deviney back as our summer intern, serving in the office again. And this time she is now a high school graduate, and so she'll be heading to college in the fall, but delighted to have her back. So you may see her around on the 12th floor, and delighted to have her. Just a couple things. One is, it is kitten season, if you're not aware, and so at times, though, folks will find kittens without their mother and assume that the mother has abandoned them, and unfortunately, they take them, but the mother has actually gone off in search of food for her kittens, and so people take them, and so it's better that folks leave them alone, watch them, see if in fact the mother does return before removing them. They can survive for a bit of time because it's always better to leave them with the mother. They do much better when they're being taken care of than somebody trying to take them in and bottle feed them. They have a better survivability. So just something to be aware of. And appreciate everybody in what they're doing to help us minimize our feral cat population, but also just be thoughtful about it as well. And also, it's hurricane season, and I think we have one more up through this weekend. Continue to get supplies are available tax-free for the hurricane tax holiday.
Thank you, Vice Mayor, and that tax holiday runs until June 10th, so take advantage of the holiday. And this year, it also includes pet supplies, so I'm surprised you didn't allude to that. All right, as I mentioned earlier today, Marino is back. Commissioner Marino, I gave you your chance, and you just poo-pooed me.
I know, all right, I apologize, but I just want, no.
All right, we're getting every third word and not even that, so kill your video.
Okay,
No. All right, hold on. We're going to go back to the old-fashioned method. Hang in there.
okay, how about this?
Much better.
I do want to mention that the University
Wait.
of Florida.
Stop. Turn off your audio on your WebEx.
My audio on my WebEx, I'm on the phone.
I understand, but you were feeding back. All right, everything's good now.
Okay. The University of Florida and Jupiter Medical Center have agreed on a partnership. Dr. Rastogi and I chatted yesterday. There'll be more information to follow, but just suffice it to say that University of Florida and Jupiter Medical Center are now in a partnership. So everything is moving along for University of Florida to make a presence in Palm Beach County.
Very good. Delighted to hear it, Commissioner Kerner said.
All right, thank you all.
All right, we miss you and hope you feel better. All right, so let me finish up this marathon meeting. First of all, this morning when I did the Dump the Pump proclamation, I alluded to the fact that we had an economic summit last week. And one of the things we talked about was transportation. And since I'm the transportation guru, as you're the pet guru over here, I want to raise the issue of how we can start talking about a transportation sales surtax. And I think it's time to start understanding what are going to be the steps to solidify a broad coalition of community leaders that are going to embrace this as something that is going to be needed, not in the immediate future, but before the IST, the infrastructure sales tax, has sunset. So unless there's objection, I'd like to ask the county administrator to begin consideration of a workshop, at least to let us have some conversation about this and figure out tactically how this would work, especially in light of the fact that the legislature has tied one of our hands behind our back with respect to how we can disseminate that information to our constituents. I'd also like to again thank Commissioner McKinley for all of her work on making the reality today that the Deputy Sheriff Jonathan Wallace and Deputy Sheriff Dante Manuel Wallace Highway, Dante Manuel and the Deputy Sheriff Jonathan Wallace Highway was named today, and I think it's a suitable memorial, and hopefully our residents will continue to remember the sacrifice that was made by them and their families and all of our law enforcement that is out there every day protecting us. With that being said, at 4:30, we're adjourned.